The Chargers were silent assassins on day one of free agency, making precision strikes to find starters like Gus Edwards at bargain prices.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers for 8 seasons together, but this is our 6th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen. We always appreciate the everydayers out there. And to make sure you never miss big news shows like today's show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, one of the messages we heard from the very beginning from Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz is we have to get Justin Herbert a running game. Well, the first 2 moves of free agency for the Chargers address those very needs. You bring in Gus Edwards, you bring in Will Dissly, a great run-blocking tight end, and then they also were able to secure one of their own, bring back Alohi Gilman on a 2-year deal, and Alohi Gilman definitely earned that contract. He played lights out, the best of his career. So great moves to start free agency for the Bolts.
I love the moves. I don't think there was the splashy moves that some people were maybe hoping for, which I never really expected because of the cap situation. But I think, with Alohi Gilman, you bring back your most important impending free agent. And to me, you get 3 starting level guys at below average market price. I think that's a home run. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. David, the way I kind of looked at the Chargers' first day of free agency was, first of all, kind of a surprise because I didn't think they would move as quickly. Because usually that's when you see the bigger deals. But they moved in and got 3 potential starters. They got Gus Edwards to be their main running back right now before the draft as we see it. They go and get Will Dissly, who obviously brings some physicality, and he's starting level blocking tight end to the roster. And they also brought back Alohi Gilman. The biggest thing is they didn't spend more than $5.5 million on average for any of those players, right? Gus Edwards is in the $3 million. You have Will Dissly, who's in the $4 million, and then you have Alohi Gilman at $5.5 million. So to get day one done, knowing that you need some starters in free agency and to come away with all 3 of those dudes at below market prices, to me, that's a home run.
It is. And honestly, I think you look at all of these moves, Daniel, and you say, man, these really make a lot of sense. I mean, we saw the connection with Gus Edwards and Greg Roman and Joe Ortiz. So we always thought that was a move that would make sense in a Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman style of offense. And we also knew that they had to get better at the blocking tight end position. Will Dissly answers that in spades. He is one of the better run blocking tight ends in the league. And when you see what the Chargers tight ends from last year were ranked in comparison to Will Dissly, you are going to be very, very happy. And yeah, to bring back Alohi Gilman after a career year, a guy that, just brings some stability to the back end where you're going into a new defense and trying to have to learn, how to do things under Jesse Minter. I just think having some continuity back there with Derwin James is very, very smart business. So I just think you look at all these moves, you understand why they were done, and they got really great value from each one of these positions.
It's not just the value though to me. To me, it's more about the statement that they're making, something you alluded to at the beginning, which is they said, hey, we're going to come in and see what it looks like if Justin Herbert has a good running game. And the first 2 moves they made, getting Gus Edwards, getting Will Dissly, both show you, okay, this is where we're showing our commitment to improving this. Will Dissly is the best Chargers blocking tight end they've had in a long, long time. Maybe Brandon Maliauniuna, right?
Yeah,
maybe that's how long.
Exactly.
That might be how long we're talking about here. And just getting Gus Edwards, someone that fits in the Greg Roman running scheme, because we've already seen it, right? That's the one I want to start with here, because the Chargers did lose Austin Eckler to the Washington Commanders, and we'll get more into that in another day. We kind of expected that to happen. We said it was very unlikely he would be back. But they replaced him with a guy we were in favor of when we were talking about it. We didn't necessarily want them to spend big money on running backs. They go and get Gus Edwards, who, David, under Joe Ortiz, never averaged less than 5 yards per carry in any of the 4 seasons they were together in Baltimore. Also has relationships with their new offensive line coach, has relationships with their new run game coordinator. So to get someone like this at the deal they got him at, I think is an absolute steal. And it shows them allocating resources, I think, into the right place as opposed to trying to make a splash and getting a $10+ million running back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was always a pipe dream, getting a Saquon or getting a Josh Jacobs. That was never really going to happen. I mean, it's fun to fantasize about that potential.
Yeah, both those guys got 12+ million, right? Where's
exactly.
That coming from?
They got big money, and so that was really something that was never going to happen. Gus Edwards' contract, according to Aaron Wilson, is 2 years, $6.5 million, $3.375 guaranteed, $2.25 million signing bonus, and according to Daniel Popper of The Athletic, the cap hit in 2024 only $2.25 million. So that is definitely something when you're cap strapped and having to still make some moves to try to get under the cap, and that's smart business right there. And also, you're getting a guy who doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires. He has not been the starting running back for the entirety of his career. He's 29 years old next month, but he's only had 699 carries in 5 seasons. That's really not that bad. I mean, yeah. And he's a bigger running back. He's 6'1", 238 pounds. A man of after my own heart. I've been wanting to see the Chargers get a bigger running back for a very, very long time. They finally make that happen. And I just think this is a guy that's going to be a plug-and-play guy. It's going to fit so well because he already has that understanding of the run concepts. He understands what they're trying to do, what Greg Roman wants to do, and he can really help that learning curve for everyone else around him because he's already done it, and he's done it at a high level, had a tremendous amount of success. From 19 to 22, under Greg Roman, he averaged 5 yards a carry or over every single one of those seasons.
Yeah, and another big thing last year, too, after a pretty limited production in touchdown scoring, scored 13 touchdowns, was third in the league last year. And I think to me, he's just a no-nonsense hard runner that's going to get what the offensive line gives him and a little bit more. He's going to fall forward. And I think the biggest thing where this helps the Chargers just schematically is just those short yardage situations that Austin Eckler was never really meant for, right? Yeah. Per Warren Sharp, out of 32 eligible running backs last year, Austin Eckler ranked 30th in success rate on short yardage plays. Gus Edwards ranked 4th. Right. So now when you get into those short situations, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, instead of having to, risk it all and go on the line with 4th and 1 because you can't get it on 3rd and 1, you have someone who's good in those scenarios, and something I think this new regime will struggle with a lot less than what we saw under Joe Lombardi and the coaches before him. But I do think that with this move, you also think this is going to be somewhat of a committee because with Gus Edwards, there's a reason. With Greg Roman, he never got, 300 carries in a season. It's because they attack things like a committee, and I still expect that. But to me, David, even though it's nice to know they have a guy, right, they're still going to have to add to it, especially when you look at the fact that Gus Edwards has 12 career receptions in his, it's very, very limited receiving history for him. So I'm assuming it's still going to be a draft, but it puts less of an emphasis of having to spend a premier draft pick on this because you don't have to rely on that rookie to carry the load as a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really smart business. Like I said before, you bring in somebody who already understands the system, that's had success in the system. But yeah, it's not going to be just Gus Edwards getting the ball 25, 30 times a game. He's going to be part of a committee where you bring in a younger running back where he can help kind of impact his growth and his development and try to help bring him along at a quicker pace. But I think right now you look at the room, it's Gus Edwards and it's Isaiah Spiller that's under contract. So that's still pretty light for an NFL running back room. So I would expect them to at least try to target a running back in the draft. But I think this makes it so they don't have to target a running back so early. I think they can find something in the middle rounds, maybe in the later rounds, where they find somebody that they feel like can really mesh well and fit and give them the type of dynamic that they're looking for later on in the draft.
Yeah, that's what you have to hope for. And I think the other thing here, big picture-wise, is just none of these contracts are going to tank the Chargers, right? Only 2 to 3 years on all of these deals. So with Gus Edwards, if it doesn't work out, I mean, I think what you're hoping for is that he can carry, a lot of the load until whatever running back can take over, because he's only here for 2024 and 2025. We'll see how Elijah Dotson kind of mixes into that picture too, and what kind of role he has, if he has a role with this new regime too, but does still feel like they will add to that position. And it feels like they'll add to the tight end position as well still. But the good news is they have a very dependable, capable player, bringing in Will Dissly, who specializes in one thing, and it's one thing the Chargers haven't had in a long time, and that is someone who is a huge positive impact in the running game, fitting what this Chargers theme has been, doing what they said they would do. So we're going to get into him and much more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. I do need to tell you guys about FanDuel, though, because you can say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every single game of the tournament. Everyone loves a bracket. I love a bracket, but I've never had a perfect one. I'm guessing you haven't either. So don't let the fun stop when your bracket is busted, because you can bet on every single game of the biggest sports tournament going on this year. And that is one of just the best times of the year to be betting on any kind of sports. It's all day action, all day, every day, this first couple of weekends. So whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. And the great thing is, you could literally bet on a 16 seed, or one seed against the 16 seed. $5, you win that, you get $200 in bonus bets. So make sure to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. David, the second big addition that we saw on the first day of free agency, which was more of a frenzy than I thought for the Chargers, with 3 guys brought in today or re-signed today. And we'll talk about Alohi Gilman getting, their #1 impending free agent back on the team, which I thought was huge, filling another starting position. And as far as just a, top end tight end, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's what Will Dissly is, but this is a very targeted strike. Like what I said before, it was precision strikes for the Chargers. It was very intentional. That's something we talk about, right? These moves are intentional. This isn't just, go get a body. This is someone in Will Dissly that makes a ton of sense and goes with the theme of what they told us they were going to do. Because when you bring in someone like Will Dissly, it does show that you're ready to be serious about improving your run game. And it's easy to say that this is why this deal was made.
No question about it. Will Dissly, 27 years old, he's a 6-year vet in this league. The career stats are this: 127 receptions, 1,421 yards, and 13 touchdowns. So he's not that big of a receiving threat. That's not exactly what he's brought in here to do. He's brought in here to bring that physicality and that toughness in the running game. He is an excellent, and I mean excellent, run blocker. He had the second highest run block grade amongst tight ends, minimum of 100 run block snaps, which is in stark, and I mean stark, contrast to where the Chargers were at.
Oh, no.
Last year, you look at the run blocking grades for the Chargers last year, and they were horrendous. Stone Smart, 78 out of 79 with a 31.9 run block grade. Donald Parham Jr., 69th out of 79. And Gerald Everett, 53rd out of 79. You now bring in a guy who has the best run blocking grade that you've probably seen in the last 25 years. This guy truly gets it done. He is a difference maker, not just as a run blocker, but also as a pass blocker as well. He's excellent in that respect, and he is going to make a difference.
Helping the running game, protecting Justin Herbert, check and check. I mean, do they still need to get him a weapon? Yeah, we'll talk about that. This doesn't rule anything off the table, but 3 years, $14 million. The prices for tight ends is only going to go up, right? Like, I think this is going to feel like a real drop in the bucket a couple of years from now, and even as of right now. They made him the 24th highest paid tight end at his position, or player at his position. So it's not like they're spending big money on it. 3 years, $14 million. You get that squared away for the next 3 years. You're hoping you get a legitimate run blocker on your team the next 3 years. You start that off right away, and you can still address that position in other ways the next couple of years. But definitely a better run blocker than receiver. Last year, or 2 seasons ago, was probably his best season. 2022, 34 catches, 349 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's kind of always been the bridesmaid and never the bride to some extent, because the last couple of years he was behind Noah Fant after he got traded in the Russell Wilson trade back to the Seahawks. And then before that, it was Gerald Everett, right, that was taking the majority of the snaps as the receiving option in Seattle. So I think that he's someone that is a capable receiver. I don't think he's a terrible receiver. He's never been in a featured role like that. But I think the other big part of this too, it doesn't count against the compensatory pick formula. That's another big part of this, something that Joe Hortiz said he would do, because by getting Will Dissly, it doesn't count as really bringing in a free agent because he was released by the Seahawks. If someone is released, they don't count against the compensatory picks, just like the Chargers won't get a comp pick for Eric Kendricks because he was released, right? Will Dissly will not count against the Chargers because he was released. So, right, this is something that you can kind of wash your hands of, and it's kind of a double positive in that way while getting a solid player that fills a huge role, because you couldn't go into the draft needing a tight end, needing a starting tight end, and just going in with the guys they have on this roster. At the same time, David, it probably does mean the end of the Gerald Everett era, because I just don't see them spending $5+ million on 2 tight ends, and that seems probably like what it's going to cost.
Yeah, which is a bit sad for me, because I genuinely enjoyed watching Gerald Everett play football. I mean, he was an okay, I mean, not a great blocker, as you know, I presented with the stats.
He gave good
earlier.
effort. He was just smaller.
Great effort for sure, but even more effort when the ball was in his hands. My goodness. It, you know, like Dan likes to say, it was like a fight trying to get him on the ground. He liked to run through people. He always got yards after the catch. Like, you know, this is the type of player that you enjoyed watching. He was, you know, I feel like this is a guy that could really thrive in almost any era because of the way he plays the game. I mean, you can never question. I mean, most of the time you couldn't question the effort. I mean, there's a play I remember unfortunately happening when
he's exhausted.
That one he should have never been on the field. Let's be clear. But when the ball's in his hands, he was just a really exciting football player to watch. So I wish him the best of luck. But I think this probably spells the end for Gerald Everett. But I would much rather get somebody who's already an established run blocker in free agency, bring him into the fold, not have to worry if I have to develop that aspect of a tight end's game, because, hey, this is a passing league, and even so in college. So I think I feel much better about the ability of a tight end to come in that already has some developed pass catching ability rather than some run blocking ability. So I think this was the right way to go about this.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's also a rare breed, too. Like, I mean, we watch a lot of college tight ends. You don't see a lot of dudes who are super proficient in run blocking, because as the college game spreads out more and more, so do the tight ends. So I think the good thing about this, David, is it lets you be a little less picky about the tight ends that you get in the draft coming up, because you don't have to feel like you have to get someone who's going to be this All-American, fully developed, strong in both areas, right? Like, you can go get a receiving tight end now because you already have that other box checked, right, for lack of a better term. So, like, now
Brock
you
Bowers, anyone?
Exactly. Well, and I think the thing is, from this is one of my main takeaways is like, hey, it doesn't rule anything out as far as the draft goes, right? Because Brock Bowers is an elite receiving threat, right? And someone who is a proficient blocker, especially for his size. And I just think that it's still going to be a position that gets added to. It doesn't necessarily take Brock Bowers off the table.
No, it does not. And I think still, even with this move being made, I think I can speak for both of us that still probably like to trade back a little bit and then pick up Brock Bowers, because I think at 5 with the money situation, it is a bit too rich for my blood there. But I mean, if you trade back to 9, 10, then I'm loving that idea a whole lot more, and you get somebody who is a legitimate weapon, a straight up demon as a pass catcher right away, a guy that you can really put anywhere. He's a guy that you just get the ball in his hands. He can be an effective short yardage running back. Yeah. He's a guy that can attack the scene.
He's a creator for sure.
He is a absolute creator for sure. He's a weapon, and so. I think, it doesn't mean that you have to go get a tight end early, but it does open up the possibilities of the type of players that you can bring into the fold.
Right. Like, when you go into the draft, you could take someone who you're not sure is going to be a good run blocker. And I think just as far as like building a balanced room, the room gets a lot more balanced now that you have Will Dissly in it. Yeah. Because, you still have Donald Parham, who's much more of a receiving option. You still have Stone Smart, much more of a receiving option. And I don't know at this point what the picture is going to look like for those guys, or how much they envision them being part of this offense still, but at least it's more balanced. Before, you had 3 dudes who were basically all receiving tight ends. You tried to bring in a Nick Vannett and make little moves like that, but as we saw under Tom Telesco, it's not as easy to find a good blocking tight end as it seems. Will Dissly has been that consistently over a huge sample size, so I love this move. I love the Chargers making a move to improve the running game to protect Justin Herbert. He checks those boxes. And, we'll see how the receiving parts of it shake out. But like having a receiving option like Gerald Everett without having the ability to have a good run blocker, look what that got them, right? Like it still leads you to having a flawed offense. So getting someone who's a little bit more well-rounded, I think is a great move, especially for the price that they got him at. I think the best move the Chargers have made as far as guys they're going to bring back, there's only been one. Well, I don't know. I mean, Cameron Dicker's pretty good too. But Alohi Gilman was the guy that when we talked about it, hey, if there's one free agent you can keep from this class, one unrestricted free agent that you want to bring back, both of us immediately said Alohi Gilman. The Chargers got him, and they got him on a pretty good deal. So we're going to talk about that in the rest of the safety room and what it looks like going forward for the Chargers and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. It can be easy to ignore our social battery and spread ourselves thin, especially with social gatherings picking up after the winter. What's the right amount of socializing for you, and how do you recharge? Maybe you thrive around people, or maybe you just need some more alone time. Therapy can give you the self-awareness to build a better social life that doesn't drain your battery. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. I know this is something internally that I struggle with a lot. Who should I be spending time with? How do I not let people down but also give myself enough time to have my me time, right? And I think that's such an important thing. And having a therapist and an unbiased person, right, to give you some thoughts on it, I think is just invaluable and helps you really put things in perspective. BetterHelp is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. So find your social sweet spot with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. David, we talked about the new guys, the newcomers joining the team, but we haven't talked about the one big name that got re-signed for the Chargers on the first day of free agency, and a dude who would have been a huge loss for them had they not been able to retain him and left a really big hole in the Chargers secondary, and that is Alohi Gilman. But I do want to tell everyone to make sure you guys are checking out Locked On Sports today, the first ever national 24/7 live sports streaming channel, giving you the expert analysis from the local experts the way that only Locked On can from sports all over the country. So make sure you guys go subscribe to that today. But David, Alohi Gilman, coming off of his best year, gets rewarded. He's back with the Chargers. I think this is a great move for them to be able to retain maybe their most important impending free agent.
I love this move. I was really excited that the Chargers were able to bring Alohi Gilman back because I really feel like this is a guy that really put it all together. I mean, you kind of was able to see the maturation process for Alohi Gilman from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 to year 4, really, getting comfortable and then really just letting the instincts take over. And he really was a difference maker for the Chargers. He made several impact plays. I mean, the 2023 stats, they're all pretty much career highs. Tackles, career high, 73. Forced fumbles, career high with 3. 2 fumble recoveries, 2 interceptions, career high. 10 pass deflections, a career high. And also had the 5th highest overall grade for a safety at 86.1 from PFF. He was fantastic last year. I've said it before. I feel like he earned himself a new contract with the Chargers, and the Chargers reward him with a new contract.
Yeah, and the one thing that doesn't show up on those stats is just all the big plays he made as far as 4th down stops. Because, I remember at least 3 or 4 4th downs this year where this dude's flying up in the flat to make a tackle short of the sticks, or he's breaking up a pass on a big down. He was huge in that regard. And, I just feel like it's also a bargain contract for the Chargers. You're getting a starting level safety. Like David said, the 5th highest graded safety from Pro Football Focus. Even if you don't, agree with Pro Football Focus grades, he was the most impactful safety on the Chargers last year.
Yeah, you could just see it.
One of the most impactful defenders on the Chargers last year. So to get that dude back for 2 years, $11 million, right? You're paying him $5.5 million a year, more of a front-loaded contract for him, so you're giving yourself not as much of a hit this year, putting more of it into 2025 when things really open up on the books.
Yeah.
It's a home run for me. And another thing, David, is something that Daniel Popper pointed out that I didn't even think about, is that Alohi Gilman was actually with Chargers' new safety coach, Chris O'Leary, in Notre Dame in 2018 and 2019. So some connections there, obviously a friendly face. But you paired Derwin James and Alohi Gilman together. I think the other big part of this, David, what it says to me, is this coaching staff has evaluated what they have on this roster, and they said, hey, that defense was bad last year, but the safeties weren't the big problem.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think we know what the story was with Derwin James. They just tried to kind of spread him a little bit too thin. You try to ask him to wear too many different hats.
Yeah.
But with Alohi Gilman, I think this is a guy that just really was rock steady game after game after game. He's a guy that you could depend on. He was a pretty solid tackler. He was definitely in the right place at the right time, showed really good instincts. And so I think, the coaches were able to evaluate that. They saw that, and they said, hey, this is a guy that can be an asset for my team in this new defense, with Jesse Minter and his, coaching staff that he's bringing to the table. You realize that he has a guy that's a pretty versatile defender that understands the defense, is a smart player, and allows that to let him go make plays on the football field.
Yeah, he's always been super instinctive. I remember watching his tape when we were watching him coming out of Notre Dame, and just like how many times he just seemed to be around the ball or making a big play. He had a big stick, I don't know if you remember, on a goal line play where he saved a touchdown and forced a fumble tackling a dude on the 1 yard line.
I do remember that.
He had always played like his hair is on fire. And this is not the biggest dude, not the most athletic dude, right? A dude who came in as a 6th round pick. So to be able to turn his career into what he already has, put some respect on his name because he absolutely earned it. He balled out for the Chargers last year. I'm surprised he didn't get more than what he got from the Chargers, but I think this is a win-win for both sides where he gets a couple more years, a chance to prove himself after really only one starting year, taking over from Nazir Adderley last year, and giving himself a chance to get back into the market still at a pretty good age and also confirm
and putting some good money in his pocket too, Daniel. I mean,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, about $10.125 million according to Aaron Wilson. So, I mean, hey, after making that 6th round, rookie contract, cost-controlled contract money to making this type of money, it's definitely a nice little pay bump and just an acknowledgement of where he is as a player.
Another huge reason is because of the depth at that position as far as why this was so important to get done. Because you get a dude who you already have a ton of familiarity with, right? You're not taking a chance on some other team's free agent that you're not necessarily sure how it fits. Obviously, Jesse Minter is signing off on this, right? And it's so important because of the fact that the Chargers have really nothing behind Derwin James and Alohi Gilman, to the point where this is a position that still has to be addressed to some extent, because right now it's JT Woods and AJ Finley, who's more of a special teamer. Woods was a healthy scratch in most of the games he was healthy last year, right? Can Ben Herbert work a miracle with JT Woods? And I think the other thing is, even though it's been much better, Derwin James, I think 15-plus games in 3 straight seasons after missing, 21 over a 2-year span. Yeah. Or even more than that. But, only playing 5 games over a 2-year span. It's not as big of a deal as it was, but it just feels like, hey, this is a position you need somebody else in that room, because even with the guys that you have from last year starting, I like that, but it still needs more.
Yeah, I mean, hey, AJ Finley, 27 snaps last year. JT Woods, 61 snaps last year. Those are the guys that are behind Derwin James and Alohi Gilman. So not a lot of productivity, not a lot of experience there. And obviously the coaching staff didn't really trust JT Woods to get on the football field. And, of course, he was dealing with some off-the-field issues as well. Hopefully he's able to get all that stuff right, and he's able to have a new opportunity, because he's really the only
he had a weird
true
illness or something too,
yeah,
right? Because he was
that's what I'm saying. The off the field.
I feel like off the field makes it seem like it's off the field, right? Which is not what it was.
No, nothing like that.
Yeah, he had a weird illness, right? Where they kept saying he has an illness, and it was just like he, he's on NFI list, had to miss it, 4+ games because of it, but I think the bigger thing is what stock can you put in those guys, right?
You can't put any stock in them. Yeah.
And you don't know how they're valued by the new coaching staff. That's the other thing, is you just don't know how they feel about them. And it's hard to say that they would feel very confident in those being the main reserves at that position, given, the fact that we haven't seen them. And what we have seen from them was,
not very good.
Hot and cold, to say the least.
They could use another free safety type to bring into that room to make us feel a little bit better about the depth at that position.
Yeah, and now for the Chargers, this is just day one. Obviously, still a lot of work to do, and I'm sure as we get here talking with you guys tomorrow, there's going to be more moves. I'm almost guaranteeing, Mike Williams is cut at some point today as you guys are listening to this. A new league year starts on Wednesday. You guys are going to be hearing this on a Tuesday. It's going to happen, and so are some other moves. The Chargers are out there spending money, but they haven't got the money off the books that they need to yet either. So this team could look a lot different in the next few days. To make sure you are back here with us covering the biggest news as we always do every day, as Locked On Your Team every day. Make sure you guys follow and subscribe to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. We'd like to see a center, maybe a Bradley Bozeman. We'd like to see cornerback still addressed to some degree here. but still a lot of work, and we will be here with all of the latest news. You can also find the show every day on our social media. You can find us on Twitter at LockedOnLAC, me at Dan Talk Sports, and David Drogemeyer at DroTalkSD. You can also find the show on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. I can't wait, David. A more active, more fun day on day one than I was expecting, but still a lot of work to do. So I'm excited to see what the rest of the week brings. But I think it is a huge win, Chargers fans, on day one. I'm excited to see how this regime keeps attacking free agency and how much different this team is going to look. But make sure you guys are back here with us tomorrow. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.